Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And yesterday I did a video, and the video was titled, I Never Believed I Was Good Enough. And I talked in there a lot about, I read a meditation, and I talked in there about like growing up and being bullied, and something I've talked about over here many, many times, right? And seeking the attention from people that didn't like me. Because if I could get them to approve of me, if I could get them to like me, then that would validate for me that I was good enough, right? And so I was always looking for outside sources to validate my worth, which is something that I do not do today at all, right? And it's probably been, I mean, I'm 51 years old. This is something I've worked on the majority of my life, is outside validation from other people, whether that's my husband or who I was dating at the time, or a friend, or a coworker, or a colleague, or just one of you, or somebody I went to school with, or a classmate of mine when I was in first grade, or a teacher, or a coach, or a mentor, or whatever, a neighbor. I've done that my entire life, right? And many times, you know, one of the reasons why I say be too much is because much of my life I have, you know, I love the saying, I think it's by Dita Von Teese, that you can be the ripest peach in the world and there will still be people that don't like peaches, right? And I love that saying because I have really, over the years, well, I mean, since I was in first grade, I have really dulled myself and adapted myself to be more likable, or to be what somebody approves of, or to be what somebody wants me to be, just so that they'll like me, just so that they'll approve of me, right? And I would say that if I've done that, I mean, let's just be for real, right? Like, if I did it to, like, every class when I was growing up, and we're talking hundreds of cases, right, at this point that I've done it, if I've done that 100 times, it's maybe worked one time for me, right? And then didn't last because somebody realized that that's not really who I am. When I talk about being too much, okay, what I'm talking about is whatever is in your soul, let out. If you want to sing, sing. If you want to dance, dance. If you want to wear whatever you want to wear, wear it. Don't give a crap what anybody else thinks about you, okay? It's not about them, right? You know, and I fed into that for a very, very long time. I tried to appease people and say things, and, you know, I wouldn't say things because I didn't want to piss off certain people, and then I didn't, you know, go around my principles, and I didn't stand true to my beliefs. Years ago, I saw this movie called The Contender, and I've actually quoted it a lot in many of my videos. I saw this movie called The Contender, and The Contender is a great movie, and it's about this woman, and she's running for Supreme Court Justice. And these pictures come out from when she was in college that, I don't want to ruin it for anybody if you haven't seen it, but these pictures come out and they show her in compromising situations. And so the whole, like, case of her, like, she's this, like, you know, trial of, like, about these pictures and whatever. And at the very end of the movie, it comes out, and this won't ruin the movie is fantastic, but it comes out, and I think Jeff Daniels is it Jeff Daniels? I can't remember who plays the president, but she's running, and he comes and announces that she's been made the Supreme Court Justice. And he says to her that we found out the pictures were doctored. And she says, I know. And he goes, you knew all along. And she said, I knew all along that the pictures were doctored. And he says to her, he said, why didn't you ever say anything? And she said, it was never theirs to ask in the first place. And this is something I was talking about in the last two videos, that people think they have a right to information of your life that is not theirs to have a right to. You are the one that gets to decide what you talk about with your life, okay? And when people get it wrong, or they lie on your name, or they I don't even give that energy anymore. Keep on lying on my name. Believe what you believe, okay? I'm not addressing it. I'm not dealing with it. Believe what you want to believe, okay? But she says in there something so powerful, and she says, it was never theirs to ask in the first place. And I'll never forget hearing that for the first time. I was like, damn. People that think they have a right to privileged information of your life, they don't, okay? And then she follows it up by saying, principles only mean something if you stick to them when they're inconvenient. And I love that so much, right? Because for years, there's a reason why my group is very small today. There's a reason why I only have a few people around me. Because for years, I appeased people, okay, and didn't stand up for my beliefs and my principles. Because it was more important for me to be liked by somebody that had different opinions than me. Different opinions is one thing. Different principles and beliefs by which they live by that I can't get behind. I can't stand behind, I don't agree with, and I think it actually speaks volumes of who you are as a person. But I thought their approval and their liking of me was more important than me actually standing behind those principles. About 20 years ago, I stopped doing that. And I was like, I just can't continue to do this anymore. I've shared the story. I was in a work environment. There were jokes being told that were gay jokes. And I finally was like, I'm not going to be part of this anymore. They're literally making fun of me to my face, and I'm allowing it. And I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't sit in situations, I don't allow myself to be put in situations where people are saying things around me. I'm either going to speak up and you're going to hear what I have to say, or I'm not going to be sitting at that table. That's how I feel. My beliefs and my principles are that important to me today. And when I heard that in the movie, it just completely reiterated for me everything that I've been doing and I believed in, right? The people that are in my circle today, and people always misconstrue this and they say, so the people that you're friends with have to agree with everything you say. No, my friends and I disagree on a lot of things. We have a lot of different opinions. But when it comes to core beliefs, core principles like kindness and love and things like that, no, my friends are on the same page as me, okay? When it comes to things like homophobia, racism, things like that, my friends and I, we're on the same page, okay? Those are things, ageism, whatever, you know, forgiveness, removal of resentment, respect. We're all on the same page about things like that. That's not something that I'm going to sit at a table and have somebody disrespect me over something. At 51 years old and the shit that I've gone through in my life, I'm not having that today, and neither should you. And I read these two comments on here, and I want to just say this because this is the build-up to kind of what I was talking about, right? Somebody on here said, words can be so powerful, they can be used for both good and evil. Thank you, Peter, for this one. It was much needed, which I appreciate that. Thank you. And then somebody else responded and said, also, it doesn't have to be verbal, talking about like when I was in school and people were saying things to me. The eye rolls, the lip turned up, and twisted faces of glare and meanness at my school. I hated school. When people tell me how great school was, it just makes me ill. Love this, Peter. And I think what they say is really interesting about the glares, the eye rolls, and things like that. I can remember, it took me back to a place when I read this comment of something that I don't really think much about, right? Like, I think a lot about the people that bullied me, that said the things, that did the things. But I can remember looking within that group of 5 to 10 people, right? And there would be, like, one guy that I had played tennis with, like, the majority of my life, because I played tennis, like, in all these leagues when I was growing up. And he would be standing in that group. And I would be looking at him like, please say something. You know I'm not these things they're saying, right? Like, you're allowing this. And he would just look at me like, no, you know, like, I can't be part of this. And this still happens today. I mean, I just saw this in TV shows I've watched. I mean, and this is still happening today. Silence is, you're complicit in that when you don't say anything about it, right? Like, you're part of that. When you're seeing something done wrong to somebody and you don't stand up and say something. And I look back on my situations when she said this to me about the eye rolls and things like that. I kind of remember that there were 2 or 3 people in these groups of people that would, in each group, right, that were just really made my life a living hell because they would not, it almost hurt more because, like, our friends were family, our families were friends, or they knew me outside of there, and they wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't say anything to this person because of fear of them too, right? A fear of their acceptance. I remember a couple years ago that I said to somebody, this had to do with like an online thing. I said, I don't understand why you're not standing up, like, you know the truth. And they said, if I do, they'll say that they'll turn it on me and say something to me. And that's always it, right? Like, if we stand up for the truth, then we're afraid that that person's going to come for us. The next person's going to come for us. And I dealt with that in my youth, and I've dealt with that my entire life. I don't deal with that today. I stand up. I'm not going to be complicit and be silent about something that I firmly believe in, right? That doesn't mean I have to go into the world with my fists raised, you know, but I'm not going to have people around me that don't have the same core beliefs than I, because if I do, then I'm going to have to stand up and say something about it. And I don't seek that approval from people today. I don't seek that validation from people today. I still seek validation and approval from people in my life that matter, but not from outside sources. I am not going to dull myself down. I am not going to dull my principles down. I'm not going to dull down my morals and my beliefs that make me who I am today. I'm not going to act like I don't like some singer because it's, you know, not popular to the main group, or act like I do like some singer. I mean, at 51, who does that anyway? But when I was in high school, I did a lot of that stuff, or before high school, you know? I'm not going to wear something or act a certain way. I can remember, I've shared this story a lot. This woman that I worked with, we were both getting our master's degrees at the same time. And it was like after class, and we were getting different master's degrees. And we were both at the same restaurant. She was like with a study group, and I was with some friends. And it was very busy. It was like at a Cafe Pas de Choux, a different one than my husband and I usually go to on Sundays. And I saw her across the room, and I was so excited to see her. And I was like, hey, how are you? And she looked over at me, and I will never forget this. She looked over at me, and she went, hold it down. And we were both the same age. You know, we were like 27 years old. And I was so excited to see her, right? And I was put down in that moment. She said, hold it down. Like, I was being too loud. I was being too much. I'm not going to apologize for being too much. And I'm not going to ask for somebody's approval, you know? My beliefs are my beliefs. My principles are my principles. And if I'm too much for somebody, I'm sorry, okay? Like Phaedra said in The Traitors, I'm doing too much because you're doing too little. I am not going to appease somebody just to make the world a better place for them. Those days are over. I'm going to be who I am, and I hope that you will too. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.